Let your breathing slow tonight. Allow your body to settle deep into stillness. Close your eyes and imagine with me. What if the entire world suddenly came to rest? What if the endless spinning that has carried us through space for billions of years simply stopped? Tonight, we explore a world where stillness becomes the new rhythm of existence. You're sitting in your favorite chair by the window, watching the late afternoon sun paint golden rectangles across your living room floor, when something extraordinary happens that you notice not through dramatic catastrophe, but through the most subtle shift in the quality of light itself. The shadows that have been slowly creeping across your carpet as Earth rotates toward evening suddenly become perfectly still, as if time itself has paused to take a breath. At first, you think it's simply your imagination, the way shadows sometimes seem motionless when you're not paying careful attention to their gradual movement. But as minutes pass, 5, then 10, then 20, the angle of sunlight streaming through your window remains exactly the same, creating a golden stillness that feels both impossible and strangely peaceful, like being inside a photograph where every dust mote suspended in the light beams has been frozen in perfect position. The birds outside your window continue singing, but their songs seem different somehow, more deliberate, as if they too have noticed that something fundamental has changed in the rhythm of the world. Your cat, who was napping in a patch of sunlight, opens her eyes and looks around with the alert curiosity of an animal sensing a shift in the natural order, though she shows no signs of distress, only a heightened awareness that something significant has occurred. You stand up slowly, feeling a strange combination of anticipation and calm, and walk to your window to observe the world outside. Everything appears normal at first glance. Trees still green and full, neighbors still moving about their daily activities, cars still traveling down the street, but there's an indefinable quality of stillness that seems to have settled over everything like a gentle blanket of peace. The sensation reminds you of those rare moments during childhood when you would lie perfectly still in tall grass, listening to the world around you while feeling completely at rest, as if you had discovered a secret pocket of time where nothing needed to change or move or become anything other than exactly what it already was. But now, that feeling has expanded to encompass the entire world, creating a sense of universal pause that feels both mysterious and somehow perfectly natural. Your phone buzzes with a text message from your sister. Have you noticed that the sun hasn't moved in the last hour? I keep checking, and the shadows in my garden are staying exactly the same. It's the strangest thing, but also kind of beautiful, like the world decided to take a rest. You realize that others are beginning to notice what you've been observing, this subtle but unmistakable stillness that has settled over the earth like a cosmic meditation. As you continue watching from your window, you notice that while human activities continue largely unchanged, there's a quality of increased mindfulness in people's movements, as if the stillness of the planet has encouraged everyone to slow down slightly, to pay more attention to each step, each breath, each moment of existence that previously rushed by unnoticed in the constant motion that had always defined life on Earth. The afternoon light holds its golden position with unwavering constancy, creating a permanent late afternoon atmosphere that feels like being suspended in the most beautiful moment of every day you've ever experienced, when the light is warm and honey-colored, and everything seems touched with a gentle magic that makes ordinary life feel sacred and precious. As hours pass in this new stillness, humanity begins to understand that the Earth's rotation has indeed stopped. But rather than the catastrophic scenarios that movies and disaster novels had always portrayed, the reality unfolds as something far more gentle and mysterious. The laws of physics seem to have adjusted themselves in ways that preserve life and comfort, as if the universe itself has been redesigned to accommodate this new state of planetary rest without causing the devastating consequences that scientific models had always predicted would result from such a change. News reports begin flowing in from around the globe, but instead of panic and destruction, they describe a worldwide phenomenon of unexpected calm and heightened awareness. Meteorologists struggle to explain why the sudden cessation of rotation hasn't triggered the massive atmospheric disruptions their computer models indicated should have occurred. Instead, weather patterns continue with a serene stability that creates perfect conditions in every region. No extreme winds, no temperature fluctuations, just a gentle, constant climate that seems optimized for human comfort and natural harmony. Your neighbor calls to tell you about the extraordinary sunset that has been continuing for hours in her part of the city, while friends on the other side of the world describe a perpetual, gentle dawn that bathes their landscape in soft, pearl-colored light that makes everything appear more beautiful than they remember it ever being before. People in the areas experiencing eternal noon report that the sunlight feels warm but never harsh, providing perfect illumination for all activities while somehow never becoming overwhelming or oppressive. Scientists appear on television with expressions of wonder rather than alarm, describing measurements that defy their understanding of planetary mechanics. According to our instruments, the Earth has indeed stopped rotating, explains Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a geophysicist from Cambridge, her voice filled with amazement rather than concern. But somehow, the centrifugal forces, atmospheric dynamics, and gravitational effects are continuing to function as if rotation were still occurring. It's as if the fundamental laws that govern planetary behavior have been upgraded to support this new state of stillness. You spend the afternoon in your garden, marveling at how the constant light, neither advancing toward sunset nor retreating toward noon, creates perfect conditions for observing details you never noticed during the brief, changing moments that previously characterized afternoon hours. Flowers seem more vibrant, their colors deepened and enriched by the steady, unwavering illumination. Bees move among the blossoms with unhurried attention, as if they too are appreciating the opportunity to work without the pressure of changing light conditions. Children playing in the neighborhood park demonstrate the remarkable adaptability of young minds, quickly incorporating the new reality into their games. They create elaborate chalk drawings that they know will remain perfectly visible for as long as they choose to leave them, since the sun will neither fade them with intense heat nor erase them by moving into darkness. Their laughter carries a note of pure joy that suggests they understand intuitively what adults are still struggling to comprehend, that this change represents not a catastrophe, but a gift. The evening news, broadcasting from regions around the world experiencing different phases of this new perpetual light, reveals that crime rates have dropped dramatically, traffic accidents have become nearly non-existent, and hospitals report significant decreases in stress-related illnesses. It's as if the entire human race has collectively exhaled, reports a correspondent from Tokyo, where eternal dawn has created a city filled with cherry blossoms that seem to glow with their own inner light. As you prepare for bed in your home that remains bathed in gentle afternoon sunlight, you realize that sleep will now become a choice rather than a biological necessity driven by darkness. Yet somehow, your body still knows when it's time to rest, guided by internal rhythms that prove more reliable and peaceful than the external cycle of day and night that had previously governed human activity for all of recorded history. In the days following the Great Stillness, humanity discovers that time itself has acquired a different quality, more spacious and contemplative, as if the absence of planetary rotation has freed consciousness from the perpetual urgency that had characterized life when every moment was rushing toward the next phase of an endless cycle. People begin organizing their lives around internal rhythms rather than external schedules, discovering natural patterns of activity and rest that feel more aligned with their authentic needs and desires. Your own daily routine transforms as you learn to navigate a world where clock time continues, but natural time has become something entirely new. Without the pressure of changing light conditions, meals become more leisurely affairs. Work proceeds at a pace that allows for thoroughness and creativity rather than speed, and conversations extend naturally into depths that were previously interrupted by the need to adjust to shifting circumstances as day moved toward night. The perpetual afternoon light in your region creates perfect conditions for activities that were previously constrained by limited daylight hours. Gardens flourish under constant, optimal illumination that never becomes harsh enough to stress plants or gentle enough to limit photosynthesis. Artists set up easels in parks and paint for hours without worrying about changing light affecting their color perception. Children build elaborate sand castles and tree houses that they can work on continuously without interruption from darkness. Schools around the world begin restructuring their schedules to accommodate students' natural learning rhythms rather than artificial time divisions based on sunrise and sunset. Teachers report that children demonstrate enhanced ability to focus when they're allowed to study during their personal peak attention periods rather than being forced to conform to schedules designed around agricultural societies that no longer exist. The business world adapts with surprising creativity to the new temporal reality without the pressure of closing time determined by sunset. Shops and restaurants remain open according to customer demand and employee preference rather than arbitrary scheduling. Many businesses discover that operating during traditionally off hours actually increases both productivity and customer satisfaction, as people can now engage in commerce when they feel energetic and motivated rather than when external time constraints dictate they should be active. International communication becomes dramatically easier as time zones lose their meaning. Conference calls and video meetings can now include participants from every continent without anyone having to wake up at inconvenient hours or stay up past their natural bedtime. Global collaboration accelerates as project teams can work together continuously, with members contributing according to their personal energy cycles rather than artificial business hours determined by their geographic location. Sleep patterns individualize as people discover their unique circadian rhythms without interference from external light cues. Some individuals thrive on 4-hour rest periods, followed by 8 hours of activity, while others prefer longer sleep cycles that restore them for extended periods of creativity and productivity without the social pressure to conform to schedules based on sunrise and sunset. Each person can optimize their rest and activity patterns for maximum well-being and effectiveness. Most remarkably, the pace of life slows universally, not because people become lazy or unproductive, but because the absence of time pressure created by changing light conditions allows for more thoughtful decision-making, more thorough completion of tasks, and more satisfying engagement with activities that truly matter to individuals and communities. Quality replaces speed as the primary value in most human endeavors, leading to craftsmanship, relationships, and creative expression that reflect deeper levels of attention and care. 6 months after the Earth's rotation ceased, humanity has settled into the profound beauty of living within distinct regions of eternal light, each area of the planet bathed in its own unique and constant illumination that creates diverse yet harmonious communities adapted to their particular luminous environment. The transition between these zones occurs gradually, creating gentle boundaries where different qualities of light blend seamlessly into one another. Your region, blessed with perpetual late afternoon golden hour, has become a haven for contemplative activities and creative expression. The warm, honey-colored light that once lasted only brief moments during each day now provides constant inspiration for artists, photographers, and anyone seeking to capture the beauty that emerges when the world is painted in shades of amber and gold. Gardens designed specifically for this eternal golden hour feature plants and flowers that thrive in warm, directional light, creating landscapes that appear to glow from within. Communities in the eternal dawn regions have developed their own unique culture centered around the soft, pearl-like light that makes everything appear fresh and new each moment. These areas have become centers for meditation, healing arts, and educational activities that benefit from the gentle clarity that dawn light provides. Children in these regions often become gifted in subjects requiring precise observation and delicate creative work, as the consistent, soft illumination optimizes conditions for detailed visual tasks. The eternal noon regions, bathed in bright, even light that eliminates all shadows, have evolved into hubs of technological innovation and scientific research. The consistent, full-spectrum illumination provides ideal conditions for manufacturing precision instruments, conducting experiments that require perfect lighting, and developing new technologies that benefit from the clarity and consistency that only shadowless light can provide. Perhaps most mysteriously beautiful are the eternal sunset and sunrise zones, where the sky remains painted in perpetual displays of colors that once lasted only minutes, but now provide constant inspiration for communities that have organized their entire cultures around appreciation of beauty, artistic expression, and the celebration of natural wonder. These regions attract visitors from around the world who come to experience landscapes where every building, garden, and public space has been designed to harmonize with skies of endless rose, lavender, orange, and gold. The eternal midnight regions, rather than being dark and forbidding as one might expect, are illuminated by starlight, moonlight, and aurora phenomena that create ethereal, dreamlike environments perfect for astronomy, deep contemplation, and activities that benefit from the profound peace that comes with a gentle darkness. These communities have developed remarkable night vision and heightened sensitivity to subtle light, creating cultures that celebrate the beauty found in shadows, silhouettes, and the soft glow of celestial bodies. Travel between regions becomes a form of pilgrimage as people journey to experience different qualities of consciousness that emerge in different lighting conditions. Your own travels take you to a perpetual dawn community where you spend weeks learning meditation techniques that are enhanced by soft morning light, then to an eternal sunset region where you participate in artistic workshops that explore how warm evening light affects emotional expression and creative inspiration. The transition zones between regions develop their own unique characteristics, featuring gradual changes in light quality that create magnificent gradient experiences. Walking from eternal afternoon toward eternal sunset provides a journey through slowly deepening golden light that takes hours to complete, allowing travelers to experience every subtle variation of warm illumination that previously rushed past unnoticed during normal day-night cycles. Most remarkably, each region's consistent light quality seems to enhance particular human capacities and activities. People find themselves naturally drawn to locations where their personal gifts and interests are optimized by the lighting conditions, creating communities of individuals whose talents are perfectly matched to their luminous environment. A year after the Great Stillness began, humanity has discovered that the Earth's cessation of rotation has awakened forms of wisdom and awareness that were always present but previously obscured by the constant motion and change that characterized life on a spinning planet. Without the perpetual cycle of day and night driving artificial urgency, people have learned to access deeper states of contemplation, creativity, and connection that reveal the profound intelligence underlying all existence. Your own transformation reflects the collective shift occurring worldwide. The constant golden afternoon light in your region has taught you to perceive subtle changes and patterns that were invisible when light conditions changed rapidly throughout each day. You notice how flowers open and close according to internal rhythms rather than external light cues, how birds sing different songs based on their emotional states rather than territorial imperatives driven by breeding cycles tied to seasonal changes. Communities have developed new forms of governance based on contemplative decision-making processes that emerge naturally when people are not rushed by artificial time pressures. Town meetings become opportunities for deep listening and collaborative problem solving, with decisions emerging from patience, wisdom, and genuine consensus rather than hasty votes driven by schedules based on sunset deadlines or morning obligations. Educational systems evolve to support the natural learning rhythms that become apparent when students are not forced to conform to schedules based on astronomical phenomena. Children demonstrate remarkable capacity for sustained focus when they can pursue subjects according to their genuine interest and energy rather than arbitrary class periods determined by rotating Earth's relationship to the sun. Mathematical concepts, artistic techniques, and scientific principles are mastered through patient exploration rather than rushed instruction driven by semester systems. The absence of night and day cycles has revealed the extent to which artificial lighting had been disrupting human circadian rhythms for generations. People now sleep according to natural internal clocks that prove far more reliable and restorative than the patterns that had been imposed by industrial schedules designed around external light changes. Mental health improves dramatically as individuals discover sleep and activity patterns that align with their unique biological and psychological needs. Agricultural communities develop innovative growing methods that take advantage of consistent light conditions to optimize plant health and productivity. Without the stress of daily light-dark cycles, many plants grow more vigorously and produce higher yields while requiring less water and nutrients. Farmers become collaborators with plant intelligence rather than managers of agricultural production, learning to recognize and respond to subtle plant communications that were previously masked by the constant environmental changes caused by planetary rotation. Scientific research accelerates as experiments can continue under consistent conditions without interruption from changing light, temperature, and atmospheric pressure caused by day-night cycles. Long-term studies that previously required complex controls to account for temporal variables can now proceed with unprecedented precision and reliability. Researchers discover phenomena that were hidden by the noise created by constant planetary motion. Perhaps most significantly, the stillness has revealed that consciousness itself has levels of depth and clarity that emerge only during sustained periods of external peace. Meditation practices that once required years of training to master become accessible to beginners who can now access profound states of awareness without fighting against the subtle agitation created by living on a spinning planet in constant motion through space. The wisdom traditions of various cultures prove to contain sophisticated understanding of stillness-based consciousness that had been partially obscured during the era of planetary rotation. Ancient texts reveal practical instructions for accessing expanded awareness that become remarkably effective when practiced in the new context of global stillness. 18 months into the new era of stillness, human creativity has flourished in ways that demonstrate how artistic expression expands when freed from the constraints and distractions created by constantly changing environmental conditions. Artists worldwide discover that consistent lighting allows for sustained exploration of color, form, and composition that was impossible when natural light got changed continuously throughout each day. Your own creative practice has transformed as the perpetual golden hour in your region provides ideal conditions for painting, photography, and any artistic work that benefits from warm, directional light. You spend weeks working on single pieces, developing techniques, and exploring subtle variations that would have been interrupted by changing light conditions in the previous era. The quality of attention you can sustain has deepened remarkably, allowing for artistic discoveries that emerge only through patient, sustained focus. Museums and galleries worldwide report unprecedented attendance as people have more time and energy for appreciating art when they're not constantly adjusting to changing schedules driven by daylight cycles. Exhibition spaces can now display works under optimal lighting conditions continuously, revealing details and subtleties in masterpieces that were previously visible only during brief periods when gallery lighting happened to complement natural light conditions. Music evolves as composers and performers discover that consistent environmental conditions allow for sustained exploration of complex compositions and subtle improvisational variations. Without the need to schedule rehearsals and performances around sunset limitations, musical communities can work together for extended periods, developing intricate, collaborative pieces that require the kind of patient, sustained attention that was difficult to achieve when external time pressures constantly interrupted creative flow. Literature and poetry experience Renaissance as writers find they can sustain narrative threads and poetic explorations across longer periods without interruption from schedule changes imposed by day-night cycles. Reading communities flourish as people can engage with complex texts during their optimal attention periods rather than being forced to consume literature during whatever hours happen to be available after work and family obligations determined by artificial schedules. Dance and movement arts benefit enormously from consistent lighting and environmental conditions that allow for extended practice sessions and performances. Dancers discover subtle movement possibilities that emerge only through sustained exploration, and choreographers create works that take advantage of unchanging environmental conditions to develop complex, extended pieces that would have been impossible to rehearse and perform under constantly changing lighting conditions. Culinary arts evolve as chefs and home cooks alike have more time and consistent conditions for exploring complex flavor combinations and cooking techniques that require sustained attention and precise timing. Without the pressure of meal schedules driven by sunset and sunrise, food preparation becomes a contemplative practice, and eating becomes a more leisurely, social activity that strengthens community bonds. Architecture and design benefit from the ability to create spaces optimized for specific lighting conditions that remain constant. Buildings can be designed to work perfectly with their particular eternal light environment, creating interior spaces that enhance rather than fight against the natural illumination of their region. Gardens and landscape architecture achieve new levels of beauty as designers can select and arrange plants that thrive in consistent lighting conditions. Perhaps most remarkably, collaborative creative projects flourish as artists from different regions can work together without time zone complications. A musician in an eternal dawn region can collaborate with a visual artist in an eternal sunset zone, each contributing during their optimal creative periods without having to compromise with schedules based on astronomical cycles that no longer affect human activity. The democratization of creativity accelerates as people who previously lacked time for artistic pursuits due to rigid schedules imposed by day-night cycles discover they have natural talents and interests that flourish when given adequate time and consistent conditions for development. 2 years after the Great Stillness, humanity has created a remarkable global community where people migrate seasonally between regions of different eternal light, creating cultural exchanges and learning opportunities that were impossible when everyone was locked into locations determined by work schedules synchronized with day-night cycles. This voluntary, contemplative migration has become a new form of pilgrimage that enriches both individuals and communities. Your own seasonal journeys have become sacred rituals that mark different phases of personal growth and creative exploration. Spring months, spent in eternal dawn regions, support new projects and fresh perspectives, while summer periods in eternal noon areas provide energy and clarity for intensive work and learning. Autumn seasons in eternal golden hour locations like your home region offer perfect conditions for reflection and artistic creation, while winter retreats in eternal midnight zones support deep contemplation and spiritual development. Communities worldwide adapt their cultures and economies to support this new form of seasonal migration. Eternal dawn regions specialize in hosting people seeking fresh starts, new learning opportunities, and healing from life transitions. These communities develop expertise in educational programs, therapeutic services, and creative workshops that help visitors explore new possibilities and directions for their lives. Eternal noon regions become centers for intensive work, research, and collaborative projects that benefit from bright, energizing light. These areas attract people during periods when they need to focus on challenging intellectual tasks, complete complex projects, or engage in physical activities that require peak energy and concentration. The consistent, shadowless light proves optimal for precision work, manufacturing, and scientific research. Eternal sunset regions develop cultures centered around beauty, artistic expression, and celebration. People come to these areas when they want to explore their creative potential, participate in festivals and cultural events, or simply experience the profound peace and inspiration that comes from living surrounded by endless displays of celestial beauty painted across skies that never change, yet never become boring. Eternal midnight regions attract those seeking deep contemplation, spiritual practice, and connection with cosmic mysteries. These communities specialize in astronomy, meditation traditions, and wisdom teachings that flourish in the gentle darkness illuminated by stars, moon, and aurora phenomena. People often choose to spend winter months in these regions for vision quests, spiritual retreats, and the kind of profound inner work that benefits from darkness and quiet. The transition zones between regions become travel corridors where temporary communities of migrants gather to experience the gradual changes in light quality that occur over the boundaries between eternal light regions. These areas develop their own unique cultures based on movement, transition, and the appreciation of gradual change that was lost when rapid day-night cycles created constant environmental fluctuation. International cooperation flourishes as nations collaborate to support the free movement of people seeking optimal conditions for different phases of their personal and professional development. Visa requirements disappear for seasonal migration, and communities worldwide compete to attract visitors by developing unique programs and services that take advantage of their particular light conditions. Economic systems adapt to support seasonal populations that ebb and flow as people migrate to regions that match their current needs and interests. Businesses develop portable, adaptable models that can serve temporary communities, while local economies benefit from the constant influx of visitors bringing diverse skills, perspectives, and cultural contributions. Most remarkably, this seasonal migration creates global understanding and cooperation as people experience life in different light conditions and learn to appreciate the unique gifts and challenges of each eternal light environment. Cultural exchange accelerates as communities share knowledge, art, and wisdom traditions that develop under different lighting conditions. The children born after the Earth stopped spinning demonstrate remarkable adaptations that suggest humanity is evolving to thrive in conditions of planetary stillness. These young people, now reaching school age, display enhanced abilities for sustained attention, deep contemplation, and creative expression that reflect their development in environments free from the subtle agitation created by constant planetary motion and changing light cycles. Your neighbor's daughter, Maya, born 6 months after the Great Stillness began, exemplifies the unique qualities emerging in the new generation. She can focus on single activities for hours without fatigue or boredom, creating elaborate artistic projects and exploring complex ideas with patience that amazes adults who remember how difficult sustained attention was during the era of constant environmental change. Her drawings reveal sophisticated understanding of light, shadow, and color relationships that typically require years of artistic training to develop. These children seem naturally attuned to the subtle rhythms and patterns that become apparent when environmental conditions remain stable long enough for deep observation. They notice details about plant growth, animal behavior, and human social dynamics that escaped previous generations who were constantly adjusting to changing external conditions. Their scientific observations often reveal phenomena that trained researchers had overlooked. Educational systems worldwide restructured to accommodate children whose learning capacities have been optimized by growing up in consistent environmental conditions. These young people demonstrate ability to master complex subjects through sustained exploration rather than repetitive drill exercises, and they show remarkable creativity in finding connections between different areas of knowledge that previous educational approaches had treated as separate subjects. The children's social development reflects their growth in communities where cooperation has replaced competition as the primary organizing principle. Without the artificial urgency created by constantly changing schedules based on day-night cycles, children learn to collaborate on projects that may take weeks or months to complete, developing patience, teamwork skills, and appreciation for collective achievement over individual recognition. Language development among the children includes new vocabulary and concepts for describing experiences that were rare or impossible during the era of planetary rotation. They have words for different qualities of sustained attention, various types of collaborative creativity, and subtle environmental changes that become apparent only during extended periods of stable conditions. Their poetry and storytelling reveal sophisticated understanding of stillness, patience, and the beauty found in sustained observation of apparently unchanging phenomena. Perhaps most remarkably, these children demonstrate enhanced intuitive abilities and empathetic sensitivity that seem to result from developing in environments free from the constant low-level stress created by planetary motion and changing light cycles. They often know what others are feeling before emotions are expressed verbally, and they show unusual ability to recognize and respond to the needs of plants, animals, and even apparently inanimate natural systems. The children serve as bridges between different eternal light communities, adapting quickly to new lighting conditions when their families migrate seasonally, and maintaining friendships across regions through communication methods that work effectively regardless of time zone complications. They become natural diplomats and cultural ambassadors who help adults appreciate the gifts and perspectives of different lighting environments. Most significantly, these children seem to understand intuitively that the Great Stillness represents not an end to change, but a transition to more subtle, meaningful forms of transformation. They appreciate variation and novelty within stable conditions, finding endless fascination in small changes that would have been invisible against the background of constant environmental fluctuation. that characterized life during the era of planetary rotation. Their play involves elaborate, sustained games that develop over weeks or months, creating complex imaginary worlds that reflect their capacity for maintaining attention and interest in ongoing projects that do not require constant external stimulation to remain engaging. 5 years after the Earth's rotation ceased, the scientific community has made discoveries that revolutionize understanding of planetary mechanics, consciousness, and the relationship between cosmic motion and biological processes. Research conducted under conditions of planetary stillness reveals phenomena that were previously masked by the constant motion and environmental fluctuation that characterized life on a spinning planet. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the geophysicist who first documented the cessation of rotation, now leads an international consortium studying what researchers term stillness physics, the apparently new laws of nature that maintain atmospheric, gravitational, and magnetic field stability despite the absence of rotational forces that traditional physics indicated were necessary for planetary habitability. We're discovering that the universe has backup systems we never knew existed, she explains during a presentation to the Global Science Council, which now meets in rotating eternal light regions to take advantage of optimal conditions for different types of research. Atmospheric scientists document how weather patterns have stabilized into gentle, life-supporting systems that provide optimal conditions for all regions of the planet without the extreme variations that previously characterized different climate zones. Hurricane systems have transformed into beneficial circulation patterns that distribute moisture and nutrients without destructive winds. Temperature variations between regions remain sufficient to create diversity without becoming extreme enough to threaten life or comfort. Biological research reveals how plants and animals have adapted to consistent light conditions by developing more sophisticated internal rhythm systems. Without external light-dark cycles imposing artificial timing constraints, living systems optimize their growth, reproduction, and energy utilization according to internal wisdom that proves more efficient and sustainable than the patterns imposed by rotating planets. Consciousness research benefits enormously from the stable conditions that allow for unprecedented precision in measuring brain activity, emotional states, and cognitive function. Neuroscientists discover that human consciousness has capacities for sustained attention, memory consolidation, and creative problem-solving that were previously suppressed by the constant low-level stress created by living on a planet in perpetual motion through space. Astronomical observations from Earth's new stable position reveal cosmic phenomena that were impossible to study when the planet's rotation created constantly changing perspectives relative to celestial bodies. Fixed observation positions allow for sustained study of distant galaxies, star formation processes, and cosmic ray patterns that provide new understanding of universal structure and evolution. Quantum physics research accelerates as experiments can be conducted under perfectly stable conditions without interference from planetary motion. Scientists discover subatomic phenomena that were previously obscured by the quantum noise created by Earth's movement through space. These discoveries suggest that consciousness and matter interact more directly than previously understood, opening new possibilities for technologies that work with rather than against natural cosmic patterns. Medical research reveals how many health problems that plagued humanity during the rotation era were actually caused by chronic disruption of circadian rhythms and the subtle stress of living in constant motion. Conditions ranging from sleep disorders to autoimmune diseases show remarkable improvement when people can align with their natural internal rhythms rather than artificial schedules imposed by day-night cycles. Ecological studies document how ecosystems have reached new levels of stability and productivity under consistent environmental conditions. Biodiversity increases as species no longer need to devote energy to constantly adapting to changing light, temperature, and seasonal cycles. New symbiotic relationships emerge between species that can now develop sustained interactions without interruption from environmental fluctuations. Perhaps most significantly, the research suggests that consciousness itself may be affected by planetary motion in ways that science had never considered. Studies indicate that human creativity, empathy, and spiritual awareness have all increased measurably since the cessation of rotation, suggesting that stillness may be a more natural state for conscious beings than the constant motion that previously characterized life on Earth. 7 years into the era of stillness, human culture has evolved to celebrate the profound beauty that emerges when moments can be sustained and savored rather than rushing past in constant succession. Artists, philosophers, and contemplatives worldwide have developed new aesthetics based on the appreciation of eternal presence rather than temporal sequences, creating forms of beauty that were impossible when time moved according to astronomical cycles. Your own practice of what locals call moment meditation has become central to daily life in your eternal golden hour region. This involves sitting quietly for hours, observing how even apparently unchanging scenes reveal infinite subtlety and variation when perceived with sustained attention. The play of light on leaves, the micro-movements of insects, the gradual shifts in cloud formations that occur over days rather than hours, all become sources of profound aesthetic experience that were invisible during the era of rapid environmental change. Musicians compose pieces that unfold over weeks or months, creating sonic landscapes that can only be appreciated through sustained listening. These compositions take advantage of audiences' enhanced capacity for attention to explore subtle variations, complex harmonies, and sophisticated rhythmic patterns that develop gradually over extended time periods. Concert halls design performance spaces optimized for their region's specific eternal light conditions, creating acoustic environments that complement the visual atmosphere in which the music is experienced. Visual artists develop new techniques for creating works that change subtly over time while maintaining consistent overall character. Paintings incorporate materials that respond slowly to light, humidity, and air currents, creating artworks that reward both immediate viewing and extended observation across months or years. Sculpture gardens feature works designed to interact with their specific eternal light environment, creating pieces that exist in perfect harmony with their unchanging yet infinitely varied luminous surroundings. Literature evolves to include forms of narrative that assume readers have unlimited time to engage with complex, multi-layered stories. Novels become immersive experiences that readers inhabit for months, exploring character development and plot evolution that mirrors the gradual, subtle changes characteristic of life in the age of stillness. Poetry develops sophisticated techniques for capturing the beauty found in sustained moments rather than dramatic transitions between contrasting states. Architecture reaches new heights of sophistication as designers create buildings that work perfectly with their region's eternal light conditions. Structures optimize the interplay between interior and exterior illumination, creating spaces that enhance rather than fight against their unchanging luminous environment. Sacred architecture in particular benefits from the ability to design temples, churches, and meditation halls that maintain consistent atmospheric qualities for contemplative practices. Gardens become living artworks that showcase the beauty possible when plants can develop according to their natural growth patterns without stress from changing light cycles. Landscape designers create outdoor spaces that reveal new aspects of beauty through sustained observation with plant combinations and arrangements that display infinite variation within consistent overall themes. The performing arts benefit enormously from the ability to create extended works that assume audiences have time and attention for sustained engagement. Dance performances may continue for hours or days, allowing for exploration of movement themes and variations that develop gradually over extended time periods. Theater productions become immersive experiences that blur the boundaries between performance and meditation, between entertainment and spiritual practice. Perhaps most remarkably, the distinction between art and life begins to dissolve as people learn to approach daily activities with the same sustained attention and appreciation for beauty that was previously reserved for special aesthetic experiences. Cooking, gardening, conversation, and even routine maintenance tasks become opportunities for creating and experiencing beauty when approached with the patience and presence that the eternal light conditions naturally encourage. Community festivals celebrate the aesthetic possibilities unique to each eternal light region, showcasing art forms that could only develop under specific lighting conditions and creating cultural exchanges that honor the diversity of beauty possible within the unified stillness that now characterizes Earth. A decade after the Great Stillness began, humanity has access to forms of wisdom and understanding that seem to emerge naturally from sustained periods of contemplative living. Without the constant distractions and artificial urgencies created by rapid day-night cycles, people develop enhanced capacity for recognizing subtle patterns, understanding complex relationships, and making decisions based on deep consideration rather than reactive responses to constantly changing circumstances. Your own wisdom practice has evolved into what you recognize as a completely different way of knowing than was possible during the rotation era. The consistent golden afternoon light in your region supports sustained observation and reflection that reveals connections and patterns invisible during brief, changing moments. You can now perceive how individual choices ripple through community systems over months or years, how personal emotional patterns affect the health of plants in your garden, how the quality of attention you bring to any activity influences outcomes in ways that extend far beyond immediate results. Educational institutions worldwide report that students demonstrate unprecedented ability to understand complex systems, synthesize information from multiple sources, and develop original insights that emerge from patient, sustained study rather than rapid information consumption. Universities restructure curricula to support learning that unfolds gradually over extended periods, allowing students to develop deep expertise and wisdom rather than superficial familiarity with many subjects. Governance systems evolve toward decision-making processes that take advantage of humanity's enhanced capacity for contemplative analysis and long-term thinking. Community meetings become opportunities for collective wisdom to emerge through patient discussion and reflection rather than rushed votes driven by artificial time pressures. Policy decisions emerge from months of community contemplation, ensuring that choices serve long-term well-being rather than short-term convenience. Conflict resolution develops sophisticated methods that assume people have unlimited time for understanding each other's perspectives and finding solutions that serve everyone's authentic needs. Mediators facilitate processes that may continue for weeks or months, allowing for the deep listening and patient dialogue that enable genuine understanding and reconciliation rather than superficial compromise based on time constraints. Spiritual traditions worldwide report that their practitioners achieve levels of realization and inner peace that were rare during the era of constant environmental change. Meditation masters from various traditions collaborate to develop new contemplative practices that take advantage of the stable conditions to support sustained inner exploration. Ancient wisdom teachings that seemed metaphorical during the rotation era prove to contain practical instructions for accessing expanded states of consciousness that become naturally available under conditions of planetary stillness. Scientific research evolves to include recognition of subtle phenomena that were previously masked by the noise created by constant planetary motion. Researchers develop enhanced sensitivity to environmental changes, human behavioral patterns, and natural cycles that operate on scales much longer than the 24-hour day-night rhythm that previously dominated human attention. This leads to discoveries about biological, psychological, and social processes that require extended observation periods to understand fully. Psychological healing accelerates as therapists and counselors learn to work with clients who have access to sustained attention and emotional stability that was rare during the era of constant schedule changes and circadian rhythm disruptions. Many mental health issues that seemed chronic during the rotation era proved to be adaptive responses to the stress of living in constant motion that resolve naturally when people can align with their authentic internal rhythms. Philosophy and ethics develop more sophisticated frameworks for understanding the nature of time, change, and consciousness now that humanity has direct experience of existence under radically different temporal conditions. Questions about the meaning of life, the nature of reality, and the purpose of human existence can be explored through sustained contemplation rather than rushed intellectual analysis driven by limited time availability. The wisdom traditions of indigenous cultures prove to contain sophisticated understanding of stillness-based consciousness that becomes directly applicable to contemporary life. Elders from various native traditions share traditional knowledge about sustainable living, natural cycles, and spiritual practices that were developed during earlier eras when human communities lived in closer harmony with natural rhythms that operated on geological rather than astronomical timescales. Interpersonal relationships deepen as people have time and attention for understanding each other's authentic needs, dreams, and challenges, rather than interacting primarily through roles and schedules imposed by external time constraints. Families develop more intimate connections, friendships become more supportive and meaningful, and romantic partnerships evolve toward deeper understanding and appreciation rather than relationships maintained primarily through shared activities scheduled around work and social obligations determined by day-night cycles. Most significantly, the accumulated wisdom emerging from a decade of stillness reveals that many of the problems that seemed intractable during the rotation era, war, environmental destruction, social inequality, psychological suffering, were actually symptoms of living in conditions that prevented the kind of sustained attention and contemplative decision-making necessary for addressing root causes rather than symptoms of civilizational dysfunction. 15 years after the Earth's rotation ceased, the planet itself demonstrates remarkable healing and regeneration that scientists attribute to the reduction in stress caused by constant motion and the optimization of environmental conditions under stable light patterns. Ecosystems worldwide have reached new levels of health and biodiversity, while human communities have learned to live in harmony with natural systems that can now operate according to their inherent intelligence rather than constantly adapting to astronomical cycles. Your region's eternal, golden hour light has supported the development of gardens and wild spaces that seem to glow with vitality and beauty that surpasses anything you remember from the rotation era. Plants grow with remarkable vigor and health when they can optimize their photosynthesis and growth patterns according to consistent light conditions rather than constantly adjusting to changing illumination throughout each day. The air itself seems cleaner and more energizing, filled with the oxygen produced by plants that can focus their energy on thriving rather than surviving constant environmental change. Atmospheric scientists document how the absence of rotation-based weather systems has eliminated many of the extreme events that previously threatened both human communities and natural ecosystems. Without the massive air circulation patterns driven by planetary rotation, weather becomes a gentle, life-supporting system that distributes moisture and nutrients exactly where they're needed without destructive storms, droughts, or temperature extremes that stressed both natural and human systems. Ocean currents have reorganized into patterns that support marine life more effectively than the rotation-driven systems that previously created dead zones, temperature variations, and circulation patterns that often transported pollution and disrupted marine ecosystems. Marine biologists report unprecedented recovery of fish populations, coral reefs, and ocean ecosystems that can now develop stable communities without constant disruption from changing currents and temperature fluctuations. Forest systems worldwide demonstrate accelerated healing as trees and plant communities can establish deep root networks and stable relationships without the stress of constantly changing light conditions and seasonal pressures driven by planetary motion. Old growth characteristics develop more quickly as forest communities can focus their energy on building complex, supportive relationships rather than constantly adapting to changing environmental conditions. Agricultural regions have become models of sustainable productivity as farmers learn to work with plant intelligence that can now express itself fully under consistent growing conditions. Crop yields increase while environmental impact decreases, as plants can optimize their growth patterns, and farmers can develop precise, responsive cultivation techniques that support rather than fight against natural processes. Urban environments transform as cities redesign themselves to work harmoniously with their specific eternal light conditions. Air pollution decreases dramatically as transportation systems optimize for efficiency rather than speed, and urban planning prioritizes sustainability and beauty rather than accommodating the rush patterns that characterized cities during the era of day-night cycles that created artificial urgency in human movement and activity. Wildlife populations flourish as animals can establish stable territories and social patterns without the constant disruption of migration cycles driven by seasonal changes based on planetary rotation. Many species that were endangered during the rotation era recover rapidly when they can focus their energy on thriving rather than constantly adapting to changing environmental conditions. Most remarkably, the healing extends to the planet's energy systems themselves. Geologists document how the absence of rotational stress has allowed the Earth's crust, magnetic field, and internal dynamics to stabilize in ways that reduce earthquake activity, volcanic eruptions, and other geological events that previously threatened both human and natural communities. The relationship between human consciousness and planetary health becomes more apparent as people living in harmony with natural stillness demonstrate enhanced ability to perceive and respond to environmental needs. Communities develop intuitive understanding of how their activities affect local ecosystems, leading to lifestyle choices that support rather than stress the natural systems they depend on for air, water, food, and beauty. Climate systems stabilize at optimal levels for supporting diverse life forms without the extreme variations that characterized the rotation era, creating conditions where both human communities and natural ecosystems can develop their full potential for health, creativity, and sustainable abundance. 20 years after the Earth stopped spinning, humanity recognizes that the Great Stillness has fundamentally transformed not just how people live, but who they are becoming as a species. The children who have grown up entirely within the era of planetary stillness demonstrate capacities for wisdom, creativity, and harmonious living that suggest human evolution has accelerated in positive directions that were impossible under the conditions of constant motion and change that previously characterized earthly existence. Your own journey through 2 decades of stillness has revealed capacities for deep peace, sustained attention, and intuitive understanding that feel like remembering abilities you always possessed but couldn't access while living in the subtle agitation created by planetary rotation. The wisdom that has emerged through patient observation and contemplative living extends far beyond personal growth to include understanding of how consciousness, community, and cosmic systems work together to support the flourishing of all life. The generation born after the stillness began has reached young adulthood, and their natural abilities for collaboration, environmental harmony, and conflict resolution surpass anything previous generations achieved through education and training. These young people approach problems with patient creativity, consider consequences across multiple generations, and find solutions that serve the well-being of entire ecosystems rather than just human interests. They seem to understand intuitively that all life is interconnected and that individual flourishing depends on collective thriving. Educational institutions document how learning has become a lifelong collaborative process rather than competitive individual achievement. Knowledge accumulates through community exploration and shared discovery rather than information transfer from experts to students. Wisdom emerges through collective contemplation and practical application rather than theoretical study separated from lived experience. Economic systems have evolved beyond the concept of scarcity toward abundance-based models that recognize the unlimited creativity and productivity possible when people work according to their authentic gifts and interests rather than artificial schedules imposed by external time constraints. Work becomes creative expression and service to community well-being rather than trading time for money to purchase unnecessary consumer goods. Governance operates through collaborative, wisdom-seeking processes that assume unlimited time for understanding complex issues and finding solutions that serve long-term well-being for all affected parties. Political leaders emerge through recognition of their gifts for facilitating collective decision-making rather than through competition for power over others. The arts have reached heights of beauty and meaning that were impossible when creative work was constrained by rapid time passage and constant environmental change. Artists collaborate across regions and disciplines to create works that take years to complete and generations to fully appreciate, building cultural legacies that enrich community life for centuries. Spiritual development has become integrated into daily life rather than separated into special practices or institutions. People naturally access expanded states of consciousness through sustained attention to ordinary activities, finding sacred meaning in work, relationships, and interaction with natural systems rather than seeking transcendence through escape from earthly existence. Most significantly, the relationship between human consciousness and planetary intelligence has become conscious and collaborative rather than unconscious and exploitative. People understand themselves as expressions of Earth's awareness rather than separate beings living on a dead rock, leading to choices that support planetary healing and evolution rather than extraction and destruction. The legacy of stillness appears to be the emergence of a form of human consciousness that can thrive in harmony with natural systems, create beauty and meaning through collaborative creativity, and solve problems through patient wisdom rather than reactive force. Humanity has learned to live as conscious participants in cosmic evolution rather than isolated individuals struggling against natural processes they don't understand. Looking back across 20 years of transformation, it becomes clear that the Earth's cessation of rotation wasn't a catastrophe, but rather the planet's gift to humanity, an opportunity to discover forms of consciousness and community that were always possible, but couldn't develop under the conditions of constant motion and change that characterized the rotation era. Tonight, as you sit in your garden 20 years after the Earth stopped spinning, watching fireflies create tiny constellations among roses that bloom with eternal beauty under the unchanging golden light of perpetual afternoon, you finally understand the profound gift that planetary stillness has given to humanity. The cessation of rotation wasn't an ending, but a beginning, the start of an era where consciousness can develop its full potential for wisdom, creativity, and harmonious relationship with all life. The garden around you exemplifies the transformation that has occurred across every aspect of existence. Plants grow with a vitality and beauty that seems to emanate from their connection to deeper sources of life energy that were always present but couldn't be fully accessed while the planet spun through space. in constant motion. The roses bloom continuously in cycles that follow their own internal wisdom rather than astronomical imperatives, creating beauty that renews itself according to natural intelligence rather than external time constraints. Your grandchildren, who know no other reality than the stillness era, play quietly among the flowers with the patient creativity and gentle collaboration that characterizes their generation. They build elaborate structures from twigs and stones that will remain exactly where they place them, creating art that can develop over weeks and months without being disrupted by changing weather or daylight conditions. Their games involve sustained imagination and cooperative storytelling that reflects their natural capacity for the kind of deep attention that was rare among previous generations. The community that has evolved around you represents the flowering of human potential that becomes possible when people can align with their authentic rhythms rather than artificial schedules imposed by planetary rotation. Neighbors work together on projects that span years, creating shared gardens, art installations, and community spaces that reflect patient craftsmanship and collaborative vision. Conflicts are resolved through contemplative dialogue that may continue for months, ensuring that solutions serve everyone's authentic needs rather than representing rushed compromises driven by time pressure. As evening approaches, though in your region, evening means simply the gradual deepening of golden light rather than approaching darkness. You reflect on how the meaning of time itself has transformed rather than a relentless sequence of moments rushing toward uncertain futures. Time has become spacious and present-focused, each moment containing infinite depth and possibility for appreciation, creativity, and connection. The wisdom that has emerged through 20 years of stillness reveals that consciousness, when freed from the subtle agitation created by constant motion, naturally develops capacities for peace, creativity, and harmonious relationship that represent humanity's authentic potential. The rotation era, with its constant urgency and artificial time pressures, now seems like a long dream from which the species has finally awakened into its true nature. Sleep, when it comes in your region of eternal golden afternoon, arrives as a choice rather than a necessity imposed by darkness. Your body has learned to recognize its natural rhythm for rest and renewal that proves more restorative and peaceful than the sleep patterns imposed by astronomical cycles. Dreams have become more vivid and meaningful, often providing insights and creative inspiration that contribute to waking life rather than serving merely as unconscious processing of daily stress. The Earth's gift of stillness has revealed that the universe contains possibilities for existence that transcend the limitations that seemed inevitable when life was constrained by constant motion and change. Humanity has learned to live as conscious participants in cosmic intelligence rather than isolated beings struggling against forces beyond their understanding or control. Perhaps most remarkably, the stillness has demonstrated that paradise was never a distant destination to be reached through struggle and suffering, but rather a state of consciousness available whenever beings learn to align with their deepest nature and live in harmony with the intelligence that creates and sustains all existence. And if you're ready to dream with me again tomorrow night, to explore another possibility that lives beyond the boundaries of what we think we know about reality, I'll be here, waiting in the eternal golden hour of imagination where time stands still and every moment opens into infinite potential for wonder, wisdom, and the kind of peace that surpasses all understanding.